This edition of the Impact Podcast is brought to you by Engage. Engage is a digital booking engine revolutionizing the talent booking industry. With hundreds of athletes, entrepreneurs, speakers, and business leaders, Engage is the go-to spot for booking talent for your next event. For more information, please visit letsengage.com. Welcome to another edition of the Impact Podcast. I'm John Shegerian, and I'm so honored to have with us today the CEO of recyclops, Ryan Smith. Welcome to Impact, Ryan.
Hey, glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Hey, it's just great having you. I feel like we're in the same room. We had a little chat before we went live here, and you're sitting in Utah, and I'm sitting in Fresno because we're still living through this COVID-19 tragic period in world history. But it's so nice to be able to be together and share your journey with our listeners and viewers today. And before we get talking about your great company, Recyclops, can you share a little bit about your background leading up to founding and growing this great company of yours?
Yeah, I have always been, I think, environmentally conscious and cared about this. I grew up here in Utah, and Utah is one of the most gorgeous states, in my opinion.
It is.
But and so I think that kind of lends you towards that. I'm an Eagle Scout, and so that kind of also, done a lot of camping and hiking. And but the truth of the matter is, I hadn't thought that much about recycling, and I'd lived here in Utah, and then I'd lived internationally a little bit, and kind of seen recycling in different states across the world.
Yeah.
But I never thought that much about it. That changed when I was in college, and what really changed was the fact that I moved into an apartment complex that didn't have recycling. And suddenly it was like this thing that has always been just like there. It's like, I never think about running water because I have running water. But suddenly when you're in a place where you don't have running water, it's like, wait a minute, well, this is a pain. And that's how I felt. Like suddenly I couldn't recycle. I remember I had bought on campus through a vending machine. I'd bought like a Sprite or a Coke or something. Went back to my apartment. When I was done with it, I was like going to put it in the recycling, and I just moved in. It was like, oh, we don't have recycling in this apartment. It's like, okay, sweet. Let me go outside to the dumpster. I'm sure there's recycling. Like, didn't even consider that there wouldn't be. Get out there, no recycling. And I put the bottle in the trash can, and I still feel guilty about it. I was like, and I didn't realize I like had this. I didn't realize that was inside me. That this inherent desire to, I think, do the right thing. And I really felt strongly that that's the right thing to do. And that really got my, mind thinking, hey, what did I just am I living in the most ghetto apartment complex, on campus? And I wasn't that far off, to be honest, but I looked around, went to friends' apartments, and I wasn't alone. Like, none of them recycled.
Wait a second. What college did you go to? I just want to understand what college are we talking about?
No. So here's the thing. It doesn't matter what college I went to. And this is what what blew me away. I went to BYU.
Great school.
Love BYU. Super glad I went there. Awesome. And at first, that's what I thought. I thought, man, BYU, Provo, Utah sucks.
Right.
Like, what the heck? And then I thought, well, maybe it's just Utah. Maybe Utah's just not good at, the environmental thing. And then I started doing more research, and it was like, oh man, this isn't a Provo thing. This isn't a Utah thing. This isn't a United States thing. It's an apartment thing. Apartments struggle to recycle. Mm-hmm. And the more and more research I did, the more I saw that, across the globe, apartments really struggle to recycle. And that to me, it's like, man, that's a huge problem. There are so many apartments in the United States. There's very little data on, what recycling is and isn't happening in apartments. Right. Based on the data that we've been able to gather, we estimate, about, at least 60% of apartments in the US don't have access to recycling. Maybe there's a park nearby that they could go take it to, but convenient access for residents. And that was really the beginning of my journey, into the recycling space, because I saw that and thought, man, that's a problem that needs to be solved.
It's important that we go step by step is we have lots of young people or other people that want to be the next Ryan Smith, want to be an entrepreneur. And for our friends and our viewers and our listeners out there that want to find Ryan and the great work that he's doing with Recyclops, please go to www.recyclops.com, recyclops.com. So you see the problem, but also now it's time to figure out, can you come up with a solution? Is the solution profitable? And therefore, is the solution also scalable? Walk us through how long that process takes before you start to figure out how to launch Recyclops.
You know, funny enough, I called like right after this experience that I shared with you, where I threw this bottle away.
Yeah.
I walked, saw some other apartments didn't recycle. I called my dad, and my dad works in facilities management.
Okay.
And so it's like he's had a good amount of exposure to recycling with that. And so I called him and was like, Dad, I'm going to start a recycling company. And he was like, horrible idea, don't do it.
Horrible idea. What kind of encouragement was that?
I know, what the heck?
Right.
What he had seen was he had actually supervised a small recycling facility.
Okay.
And in that, he saw that the facility was burning money. It was not making any money. And he said, hey, there's not money to be made in this.
Got it. Fair enough.
So what the funny thing that happened was, for 2 years, I didn't do anything. I didn't do the recycling thing. I didn't start a business, nothing. I mean, at this point, I was 21 years old.
Right.
But I decided, hey, at 23, I was actually still in school. I took a 2-year hiatus from school. I served a mission for my church in Russia.
Okay.
So all of this kind of started right after I got back from Russia. Previous to that, I did a semester of school, lived on campus, and on campus had recycling.
Okay.
But off campus didn't. And it was, and so I decided, a couple of years in, or after this experience, I was like, okay, I think I want to start a business. I decided I wanted to, give entrepreneurship a real go.
Okay.
And recycling, I had a bunch of different ideas, and decided that recycling was the thing I wanted to do. And with that, I started looking at how to make this work. I'd been given the advice, like, hey, there's no money to be made in this. And I realized very quickly that the money to be made in it is not what most people think. And that's like, oh, I'm going to sell this plastic bottle and make a buck. It's like, no, the plastic bottle, it costs a lot to transport, sort, all of that, generally more than that bottle is worth, or not getting you to the point where you're making any sort of decent income on that. And I saw that you could charge a service fee, that like waste, that's how trash is handled. You charge a service fee to pick something up, and you do that. And recycling's handled that same way. And I said, okay, so that's what I need to do. This needs to be a business that isn't making money from a material. We're making money from a service fee. And that right there, kind of got me over that hump of like, oh man, I shouldn't start something saying, okay, no, I can financially make this viable. And then it came down to trying to understand, okay, why don't apartments recycle? Why is it not happening?
Right.
And, I talk to tons of apartment owners, tried to get an understanding of it. So I got like a petition with like thousands of students saying they wanted recycling in their apartments, did all this, went to apartment owners, and they were like, oh, cool that students want that. We don't really care.
So when did you launch it officially? When did Recyclops launch?
Yeah, so I launched Recyclops in 2014.
Okay. So we're 7 years into it. 7 years into it. So how's the journey gone? Is it gone as you expected, or talk about the zigs and zags, and what's the real mission? How are you trying to democratize recycling for the consumers that want to really be part of the solution and not the problem anymore?
Yeah, well, I love that you said democratize, because that's something that we're really focused on. I kind of opened this rabbit hole with apartments. I saw, hey, apartments aren't having recycling. It's solvable. We solved it on a local scale. I didn't really build a solution that I could scale up. It was really good on micro, but as you got into macro, it didn't quite work. But I started looking around and discovered there were some other places in the economy where recycling just wasn't happening. And one of the ones that still today surprises me We had a family-run business reach out in a small city about, 40 minutes, 20 to 40 minutes from where I was operating my small business. And they reached out and said, hey, our municipality doesn't have recycling. So 10 years ago, we started a little program. We signed up some neighbors. They pay us $10 a month. We have a Suburban and a trailer that we, go pick up the recycling with. They had 3 young boys who had kind of done the labor, been the labor force for it, kind of like a paper out type job. Said the kids have all grown up. And now it's like we want the recycling to go on, but we don't want to necessarily do it. We ended up taking over that operation. But it opened my mind to this world of like, how is there a municipality? Like, what? Like an apartment that's privately owned by some investor, like, okay, I can understand. But a municipality, what? Did some digging, did a random sample of 1,000 cities in the US and saw that recycling wasn't happening in a ton of cities. And as you got into the outskirts of suburbia, recycling just starts disappearing. And as you get into rural, it's gone. And that was about 34 million households. And then on top of that, you have the 16 million apartments that we were already looking at. Suddenly we're talking 50 million households, 40% of households in the US. And that moment right there is when it's like, okay, I need to stop dinking around with apartments in Provo and like take this to the next level because this problem is huge. And our mission kind of stemmed around that, saying, okay, we want to bring environmental solutions to places that don't have them. Let's starting with recycling. And this can be done because this little family-run business in Mapleton, Ma and Pa, they were doing it in Mapleton, Utah, small town, and I thought, man, if they can do it there, I can do it anywhere. Right. And was just trying to figure out how. And that's when I started thinking about, okay, how do we make this model work? And started, looking at different things that I'd seen. I have a sister who lives in New York City. I saw in New York, all the recycling is bagged and cardboard's put to the side. That worked way better for this kind of hands-on solution that they were doing and that we were doing in this city already. So we switched to that, saw that the plastic usage from bags was equivalent to the life of a bin. So over 20 years of plastic bags, it was equal to how much plastic is in one bin. And so we were like, okay, plastic neutral on that front. So we feel okay about that as long as we're making sure the bags are being handled properly. And this logistically is way easier for us. But what that really changed for us was that suddenly, instead of, having to own a trailer and a Suburban in Mapleton, Utah, I could hire anyone in any vehicle to pick up this recycling because it was self-contained in a bag. And so you didn't need any specialized equipment. And so we kind of took an Uber-esque approach to it, said, hey, I'm going to hire local independent contractors. I'm going to find cities that don't have recycling programs. I'm going to hire local independent contractors to go pick up the recycling. I'm going to find the customers, connect those two together, and then I'll make sure that the recycling gets from that community to the nearest recycling facility, which sometimes it's 20 minutes away, sometimes it's 4 hours away.
And what was the number one thing you decided that you were going to focus on recycling?
The number one part of recycling, or
what items were you going to recycle?
Yeah. So, the focus was kind of the traditional paper, plastic, cardboard, and metal.
Got it. Okay, perfect.
Yeah. So super focused on traditional household recycling with the intention of eventually, starting to look at some of these other things like e-waste and food waste and textile and whatnot.
Now you're right now on your website. For our listeners out there that want to find Ryan and his great company, Recyclops, go to www.recyclops, recyclops.com. You're in Arizona, Colorado, Ohio, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Texas, and Utah. In 7 short years, you've grown quite a lot. How is that growth trajectory looking? And where can our listeners or our viewers, if they want to become part of the Recyclops community, how can they get involved?
Yeah, we're growing super rapidly. We actually launched, Ohio is on that list on our website. We actually launch in Ohio tomorrow. Woohoo.
Awesome.
So that's exciting.
During a pandemic, you're growing.
Oh yeah. We've actually doubled between March and November. which March and April were a little bit tough, but then we got our bearings, adapted some, and
if anyone doesn't say March and April of 2020 wasn't tough for them, they're just not telling the truth here. Come on, let's be honest. Nobody knew which direction we were headed in March and April, so that's to be expected. But you're saying between March and November, you doubled in size. That's incredible. My hat's off to you, man.
Yeah, it's been a blast. And the thing that's so exciting for me is we're bringing recycling to places that it's never been. And you think about who doesn't have recycling. I mentioned it's kind of some of these more rural communities, and it's apartments. And man, you look at who lives in more rural communities, who lives in apartments, and it's not, generally speaking, the upper class. These are middle class, lower middle class. And it's funny that you look at who doesn't have access to recycling, and it's like, oh, that population, like, man. And so we really do feel like we're democratizing it and creating accessibility to people who just don't have it. And everyone wants to recycle. So if you're looking, if you're in a community and you don't have recycling in your community, or maybe you have recycling, but you can't recycle glass. Like
right.
In February, we're launching in Alexandria, Virginia, and Kansas City, Kansas and Missouri, and in Nashville, Tennessee, because none of those communities have glass with their city program. So we're launching a glass only program in those areas. So if you're in a city that doesn't have anything, or you're lacking something, let us know. I mean, we have the ability, you can sign up and request a location anywhere in the country. And I'll tell you what, that's how we get started. Like, I had a random lady call me up from Beaumont, or from Orange, Texas. Orange County, Texas. It's southeastern Texas, about 2 hours from Houston, on the Louisiana border. No recycling there. She calls me up and says, hey, or reaches out to us and says, hey, I want recycling in my community. I heard that you guys could help. And we said, yeah, if you can get a few hundred households to sign up in Orange County, we're there. 2 weeks later, she's reaching out and saying, hey, you've gone viral locally. You're on the front page of both local newspapers. Literally within a month of her reaching out, we were picking up thousands of pounds of recycling from homes in her city.
Jeez. How do people contact you, though, if they want to bring recyclops to their community? Is that something you want people to reach out to you to say, okay, good?
Yeah, no, reach out. There's on our website. You can sign up, or there's a request form. You can just like ask us to come to your community. We have, people requesting that every day. And I'll tell you, most of the places that we're operating in today were because people requested it. That's for us the lowest hanging fruit, is people are asking us to come. We'll come.
Explain how recyclops works. So for people who want to mechanically understand your what goes on really at recyclops, how does your systemology work?
Yeah. So you sign up on our website.
Yep.
And from there, you're put into the system. You're put onto a route, and our driver has the smart routing app, and you're put on there. Your first pickup, you'll put out recycling in bags from your home, so that we can still pick up your recycling. That immediately we'll deliver a roll of recyclops bags that are more uniform, a lot easier for us to make sure they get recycled. We'll drop those off at your home, and from there, you get charged on the first of every month. We pick up the recycling. It's anywhere from $12 to $25, depending on where you're at and if you're signed up for weekly or every other week. If you want glass service, different levels there. But it's simple. I mean, you sign up once, we come every week or every other week. You put your recycling in these bags, and so it's really easy. You have your recycling can in your kitchen. You put it straight in. Bag has drawstrings. Pull it out, put it there, and off you go.
That's awesome. And how about people? I love entrepreneurs like you, Ryan, that not only disrupt old models or change the world or make the world a better place, which you're doing all of the above, but this is also a job creation business.
Oh yeah.
Talk about people who want to become drivers for you around the country. How does that work?
Yeah. So, that's something that's super important to me. I love the environmental impact. I'm definitely environmentalist. That it's hard to beat the human impact, impacting humans. And one of the things that's really cool about driving for recyclops is we have some drivers who would have a hard time getting a job elsewhere, whether, they're autistic or they're disabled in some way. And, even like you look at some of these low skill jobs, they're just tough still. Like you're working at a fast food restaurant, some of these are hard. But it doesn't matter if you're kind of in that category or if you're, on the other side and you're saying, no, I could work anywhere and I just need some side hustle. I'm trying to earn some extra money.
Right.
Yeah. All of that fits for us. And our average driver's making $25 an hour. They are using their own vehicle. And so there's some expenses associated with that, but people are netting, $17 to $20 an hour, which is pretty dang good.
It's a great wage to start with.
No, that's exactly right. And you can do better. Like we'll have drivers who hey, they buy a trailer or they have, they borrow a trailer from their uncle or whatever. And suddenly they're picking up a lot more at a time and they're making $40 an hour. And it's pretty fun to see that.
For our listeners and viewers who've just joined us, we've got Ryan Smith with us today. He's the CEO and founder of Recyclops. You can find Recyclops and Ryan's great work and colleagues at www.recyclops.com. Ryan, when you go to bed at night and now you have a business that works, you've crossed over. Where do you dream about how big this could be in the next 3 to 5 years ahead? How big can this really get? You're a young guy. You have tons of runway in front of you. Is this a big idea that can really be national in almost every zip code across America one day?
Yeah, I very much believe it is. I look at this and say, we want to be servicing at least 1 million homes. Wow. In the next 3 to 5 years. And, we're well on our way there. And I think I already mentioned that there's 34 million, kind of rural, semi-urban homes and 16 million apartments. So 1 million is, I think the potential is much bigger than that. And, another piece, something that I can't help but think about, we look at this where environmental services are lacking. And, that's not just recycling. Right. And it's not just, I look at a city, almost any city in the country, and you say, hey, what do you do with your styrofoam? Chances are you can't put it in your bin. What do you do with your old computer, your old cell phone? Chances are you can't put them in the bin, And so we look at this and say, cool, there's all the households who have nothing. And that's target number one. But then we have all the households who they don't know what to do with their plastic bag that their bread comes in. They don't know what to do with the lid of, or whatever, all these small plastics, we call them hard to recycle plastics. Most city programs are only accepting bottles and milk jugs and laundry detergent jugs and maybe a yogurt container. Everything else, your city probably doesn't want it. And it means it's going to the landfill. And we're saying, hey, we want to launch hard to recycle plastic programs all over the country. We want to partner with top brands and help them recycle better so that their products, so that things are being truly circular. I had a meeting today with a package manufacturer. We're working on a program to try and get their packaging from consumers' households back straight back to them so that they can turn it straight back into that packaging so it's fully circular. And it's that's what I'm excited about.
So really, if we had a conversation, and you're always welcome back on the Impact Podcast, to talk about your growth and your success, because it's so inspiring. It's 3, 4, 5 years from now, you could literally be in every state and be much bigger than you are today.
Yeah, we fully expect it. I mean, like I said, we launched in Ohio tomorrow. I guess tomorrow we launch in Ohio. We're launching in Virginia, and we're launching in 3 new states next month. We're going for it, and we really feel like we're onto something, and there's an opportunity here to make a huge impact and to be a profitable business while we're at it.
Hey, you can't save the world. I say this to all young entrepreneurs that come to me all the time for advice and guidance. There's no shame in saying you can't go save the world unless you make a profit along the way. Until you create your own sustainable venture, and if you're not sustainable, you're not going to go make an impact. You're not going to make the world a better place. So I think it's wonderful that you're profitable and growing.
Amen. And that's for me, that's the That's the thing, is that, it's great. I love nonprofits. Nonprofits are wonderful. We chose not to be a nonprofit because I wanted to make sure that my business didn't need charity to thrive, that we could thrive on our own. And we've been able to do that.
Hey, Ryan, you've been able to do a lot more than just that. For our listeners out there, to find Ryan, to sign up as a driver, to ask Ryan to come to your community, go to www.recyclops.com. Ryan Smith, you are making a big impact. You are making the world a better place. I wish you continued success, and thank you for being a guest today on the Impact Podcast.
Thanks for having me. Super enjoyed chatting with you.
This edition of the Impact Podcast is brought to you by Trajectory Energy Partners. Trajectory Energy Partners brings together landowners, electricity users, and communities to develop solar energy projects with strong local support. For more information on how Trajectory is leading the solar revolution, please visit trajectoryenergy.com.